Hello, and welcome to SCAD GamingFest. My name is Samaria Williams, and I'm a film and television major and acting for the camera minor from Fort Myers, Florida. When you think of the video game that pioneered the cinematic approach to gaming, you think of the Metal Gear series, the genius world and central character that drew you in, kept you guessing, and captured your attention in every frame. The series needed a voice actor to do it justice, and they got way more than that with tonight's honoree, David Hayter. His voicing of Snake in all his iterations set the standard for what was possible in video games, and his work on legendary series did not stop there. He is also, of course, the voice of the Jedi Knight in Star Wars The Old Republic, one of the most iconic and game-changing MMORPGs of all time. Without Hayter, we honestly wouldn't have the level of storytelling that we take for granted today. And it's no wonder when you consider his achievements as a remarkable writer. X-Men, X2, Watchmen. His ability to adapt far-reaching comic books to the screen is unparalleled. Hayter shows us all, as students of storytelling, the real-life heroism that exists in the fantastic. How to bridge fantasy with consequences and heart. Ladies and gentlemen, Outstanding Achievement in Entertainment, Award honoree, David Hayter. Congratulations.
I appreciate that so much. Wow. God, I was hoping I'd win. Thank you so much for having me here and for coming to this and listening to me talk about this and that. This award means so much to me, and I love being in Atlanta, and I love seeing all of you people getting ready to go off into the entertainment industry, which has been pretty good to me all the way around, and not always, but looking at it from this side of the career, it's pretty amazing to look back at the days when I was in school and just dreaming of getting out there. So I just want to say thank you so much for this, and I wanted to wish you all the opportunity to live your dreams and to let the business take you where you need to go. I thought I was going to be a movie star, and I ended up being a screenwriter. In many ways, that was better. Be open to it all, keep dreaming, and hopefully I can give you some decent advice in the meantime. So thank you so much. Appreciate it. Also, I just made that speech up. I know. Top of my head. Oh, you did. Yeah. Fair enough.
So
thank you, David. And welcome everybody. We're going to get into it. I want to remind the audience that our guest is not a jukebox, though. Okay.
No. Listen, I'm happy to do some voices for you if need be. So, yeah.
We'll get into all of that. I'm very excited to speak to David, who's truly a multi-hyphenate artist, screenwriter, actor, producer, director. But before we do, I just want to speak a little bit about how SCAD prepares its students for a career to be content creators and thought leaders in all of the majors that we teach. Across our 100 plus majors and our 40 plus majors and our 100 degree programs, students across visual effects and game design, sound design, filmmaking, make hit video games, interactive apps, and immersive reality experiences. SCAD students go on to work with studios such as Riot Games, Zynga, Google, Bungie, Meptic, Industrial Light and Magic, EA Sports, and more. And with all of this, it's no wonder that our graduates have built multidisciplinary networks starting from the moment they entered SCAD's doors. Versatile artists like David truly embody the spirit of SCAD and the spirit of collaboration. So please help me in welcoming him once more and thanking him for being here tonight. Thank you, David.
It is entirely my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So obviously you have had a very eclectic career. And the other night you jokingly said you've had every job in the entertainment industry. uh, which
above the line.
yeah, above the line. There you go. Which I thought was a joke at the time, but then the more I've been speaking with you, and the more I've learned about your experiences, it's pretty darn true. Do you mind just rattling off some of the jobs you've had and just a little bit about the path that's brought you here?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, I'm a screenwriter. I'm a voice actor. I've been the lead in some movies, and I've done casting, a ton of casts. I've been directing, producing. I'm the executive producer of a show on Netflix called Warrior Nun. Thank you. One guy. Hopefully, we'll get a season 3. And I've done set decoration on Who's the Boss. I've done editing. Just really, there are very few things in the industry that I have not done. So, when it comes time for questions, please ask me anything. AMA.
And so focusing on your acting career first, you've acted in live action, you've acted for animated films, and you've acted for games. I'm curious. I think most of us have a sense of what acting for live action and doing voice for animation is, but what is it like to be a voice actor for a video game? I'm super interested in hearing more about how you develop your character, how you work through the creative process, what you have to go off of when you're voicing a video game.
Yes. Well, good question. Voicing a video game is similar to doing animation, and I mean, voiceover is voiceover. But the thing about that, I think that people don't usually know, is that like when we do a Metal Gear game, I don't get the script in advance. They just give it to me, and so that when you hear me say it, that's probably the first time I'm reading it, and so that's a bit of a challenge. You don't get to prepare your character. You just sort of on the first Metal Gear I did, and so what I did, and I told you the story earlier. I apologize, but so when I got that role, I auditioned with. I was younger then. I mean, everybody was. I auditioned with this voice, which is pretty much how I talk, and sort of like cocky young guy, and I got the job, and then I got the script, and it turned out that that Snake had been retired, and he was a legend, and didn't want to come back, and I just felt like there was a weight of years and experience on him that I didn't have in my voice, and so that's essentially how the voice came together, and so it was really just looking at the script, seeing who he was, and building something that sounded believable. Plus, he was also a lot tougher than me, so it was like, he had to sound badass.
Well, and when you're voicing an animated film, obviously, a lot of times, at least, you have some version of the film to be voicing against, and to be matching lips for. When you're doing a video game, when you're in the booth, what are you given in terms of knowing how much time you have, or whether there's inflection? If you can talk a little bit about the technical aspect of recording.
Yeah, well, you never know what you're going to get. And so when we do Star Wars: The Old Republic, those are just individual lines attached to nothing. I mean, well, what they'll do is they'll give you the line before it and a line after it, and you sort of have to figure out the context. And then you have to do like the light side response, and then the dark side response, and the neutral response. And so that one's really weird because there is nothing to go off of. It just the words, and people don't talk to you much about inflection. Sometimes the director will say, "Oh, here he's in a quiet place. He doesn't want to alert anybody, so it's a little quieter or whatever." On the Metal Gear games, the first one we recorded it to the game, which was pretty cool. So I got to see the cutscenes and everything, and that was pretty amazing. But on Metal Gear 2, it was just time code. So we would, they'd say, "You have 12 seconds to say this line." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." And so I would do that. And then I can't remember what happened on 3. And then on 4, I was like, "Please let me see Snake. I have to see him, the way he moves. And, if he's doing anything, I need to put that action into the voice. So they sent us, the game wasn't finished, so they sent us the mocap video. So it was all Japanese people in ping pong ball suits, running around and doing the thing. But you could get the basic idea of what the scene was. And the funny thing was, in Metal Gear 4, there's a character Drebin, is played by my friend Kari Payton, who's amazing and shoots Walking Dead here. And he had a monkey, and the monkey wasn't a monkey; it was a Japanese guy in a mocap suit, who they then shrunk. And so, there's this guy, and he's sort of, walking around like a monkey, and which was good. That was his job. So it made sense in retrospect.
We spoke about this a little bit earlier, but I want this audience to benefit from the same knowledge. I'm really curious about it, especially in a video game. When I'm playing a video game, unless it's a cutscene, most of what I'm hearing coming from the character is not actual dialogue, but grunts, yells, hits, things like that. I'm curious, what's the process of recording that? Are you just given like this giant cue sheet that then you're just like basically running through them one at a time? What is that like, and how physical are you able to get in the recording booth?
Yeah, that's exactly what happens. Is they just, and I always ask to save it for the end. So at the end of each project, there's just a day of horror. It's like, okay, you've been shot like this, you've been punched, you've been punched medium, you've been punched hard. You're electrocuted, you're hanging off a thing, you gotta throw up. I had to barf a snake, which I always record in the afternoon, and so I did it after lunch. And when we did that, I actually barfed in the Metal Gear 3 booth.
Method acting, folks.
Yeah, it was Carl's Jr. really was the culprit. I know. Yeah, and so yeah, you just have a day where you have to do that. And so you can get kind of physical, but you have to stay on the mic.
Mm-hmm.
So I was saying earlier, like to be electrocuted, when Snake gets electrocuted, it's like this. And that's about as physical as you get.
Got it.
Ideally.
So obviously, Metal Gear Solid is such a incredible game. It is regarded as many as not just the greatest stealth game ever, but one of the greatest action adventure games of all time. What is it like to be a part of that legacy? I mean, did you ever imagine you'd be a part of a legacy like that? And you're a part of a couple legacies. But looking at Metal Gear Solid, what is it like to be a part of that, especially with the fan base?
It's pretty cool. Did I ever imagine it? Yeah, that was what I imagined I was like, I'm going to be Tom Cruise, or I'm going to be Harrison Ford, or something. And so I'm not that. But that's okay. So yes, I did dream that I would be a part of franchises like Raiders Lost Ark or something. And Snake, Metal Gear gave me that opportunity. And it's, for myself, mostly it's a job, and I go and I do it, and then I get to play the games, and that's pretty fun. But it's really meeting people here and at Comic Cons. And I was in Berkeley a couple days ago. My daughter just got in. Thank you, I appreciate that. As we're very proud of her. So we were up in Berkeley, and we were out with the parents, and we were sitting at a bar, and I was talking to the bartender, and I made some joke, and I guess I did a little voice or something. Guy goes, "Oh, you should be a voice actor." I said, "I am a voice actor." And he goes, "Oh, what's your name?" And I said, "David Hayter." And he went, "Snake?" And I said, "That's right." And he went and got the whole kitchen staff. I mean, like we were taking pictures, and it was so cool, because the other parents don't know what I do or who I am, and they're like, "What is this all about?" Yeah. And I've had grown men burst into tears meeting me. That's always, multiple. It's happened a number of times, and so it's very cool to be that inspirational character to people, because it's not really me. It's Snake. You know, you love Snake. I love Snake. Who doesn't love Snake? So yeah, it's very special. Actually, I'll tell you a story real briefly, but this was my favorite thing that ever happened. So I was in Toronto, which is my hometown, at the Fan Expo, and this girl came up, and she was, probably 20, and black hair, and very, very quiet. And a lot of the fans at the Comic Cons are very quiet, or have trouble communicating. And she came up and she was like, Mr. Hayter, you're awesome. And I was like, well, you're awesome. And she said, oh no, no, I'm nothing. And I was like, okay, hang on. And so I came around the table and I said, please don't say that, because you only have one life. And if you go around saying that you're nothing, that's how people will treat you. And there's no benefit to that. You go out and be awesome. And and she was like, okay. And I was like, well, I don't know, I'm giving life advice here. And, maybe I went too far. The next year I went back, and this girl came up, and she was about 21 years old, and her hair was dyed platinum blonde, and she was in a full Eva cosplay. And she leaned across the table and she was like, you don't remember this, but you changed my life last year. And I said, I totally remember it. And that's so awesome. And she had started a podcast and done all this. And she went out and was awesome. And it was pretty cool. So
That's awesome.
that's the best part of, people listen to Snake and they're like, if he tells you to be awesome, you better do it. So that was my favorite story.
Awesome. So you're not just an actor.
No.
You've done a couple of other things. Yeah. You've written several films, and X-Men being one of them. And I mean, that's quite a freshman turn at having a script produced.
It is.
Can you tell us a little bit about how that came to be, and what that experience was like, and what you learned from that experience? Small question, I know.
Yeah. Well, it's sort of a crazy story, and if you've ever seen me interviewed, I've probably told it. So I apologize. But I produced a little movie in 1997, 98, called Burn, which you can see on the YouTubes, and and we went to Slam Dance, and we had a deal set up with this studio to buy the film. What I decided to do was date our acquisitions executive, and then after a while, I wasn't dating her anymore, and then my deal was gone. So so that was a big lesson. Try not to mess with your, the deal is more important than your whatever. So I was a broke film producer, and I was really depressed, and I had nothing. I think I made $1,400 in 1998. Just, my dad, came back to support me again because I was making this film. And so I had nothing, and I needed a job, like a type job, which I'd never really had. I had bartending jobs, things like that. But my friend Brian Singer was directing X-Men, and I said, could I get a job answering the phones? And he said, sure. And so he very kindly gave me this job. And then he said, look, my assistant doesn't care about filmmaking, but you're a filmmaker. Do you want to drive me around to some creature effects houses? So I said, sure, yeah. So we went to Jim Henson, and they were pitching us like a version of Beast, who was supposed to be in the first movie. But he was too expensive, so he kept getting his leg broken before the third act action, and I was like, that's stupid. Anyway, the point of the story is that he had a scene that he couldn't figure out. He's like, I don't know how to work this out, and I had read the comic books, so I knew the characters very well. And I suggested a scene. I said, why don't you have Wolverine walking across the mansion grounds, and he runs into Cyclops and on the basketball court, and they toss the ball back and forth, have a little one-on-one, and Cyclops is telling him to. The problem was Brian couldn't figure out how to say the word X-Men in the movie without it sounding stupid.
Mm-hmm.
It was very, and I'm like, it's X-Men. They're badass. It's it's fine. But these are the things directors worried about back in the day. And so I said, well, why don't, they have a little pickup basketball game, and Cyclops is like, why don't you join the team, and you should, take a stand, do this, whatever. And Wolverine's I'm like, he's looking around, he sees all the X's and this sort of Xavier ego trip, and he's like, why don't you and Xavier and all your little X-Men go to hell? And then he pops the ball with his claw. I was like, that way you have your star, your movie star, say the word, but he's kind of making fun of it, and then that takes the sting off it. And Brian said, good, yeah, go write that for me. And I figured he was kidding, because it was an $80 million film. and that's not legal. But the next day he called me and said, where's my scene? I was like, oh, I'm working on it. And so I spent the whole day crafting this. I didn't do it. I was like, he's got to be kidding. And then I wrote it, and then he put it in the movie. I eventually got cut, but from that point on, he started having me rewrite the script. So I would answer the phones all day, and then at night, everybody would go home, and I'd stay in the office and I'd rewrite the script. And he'd tell me, look, this scene's horrible. Why don't you try this here or whatever, just to generate material, scene after scene after scene, to try to put together the best movie we could put together. And then about 3 months later, one of the producers found out about it and said, David, could you highlight everything you've done in the script so far? And by that point, it was about half of the screenplay. So he went to the executives at Fox and said, this is a problem. The phone answer guy has been writing the script, and if you don't make a deal with him, he could sue us. It's just a huge nightmare. So I got called into the office of Peter Rice, who now is the head of television for all of Disney, to give you an idea of how powerful this guy is. And he called me into his office, and he was like, David, we're not happy about this. He's English. We're not happy about this, but we're going to make a deal with you. We're going to give you $35,000, and you're not to ask for a penny more, and you'll never get a penny more. Do you understand? I was like, Peter, that's entirely fair. I appreciate that. That's the Guild minimum rewrite fee. That's the lowest you can be paid to work on a movie as a screenwriter. And then I walked out. I was walking across the Fox lot, and I was like, $35,000. I was so excited. So then how I got credit was also a crazy long story, but I did, and it was Chris McQuarrie who called my friend who won the Academy Award for Usual Suspects, and directs the Mission Impossible movies now. And he called me up the day the movie, or the weekend the movie opened, and he said, do you realize you are the most successful first-time screenwriter in film history? And I was like, I didn't realize that, but that's delightful. And
Yeah.
So that's how it happened. So, just do that.
Yeah. Check.
Yeah. No. Well, what I said to the class this morning was, the real key is that I met Bryan Singer and Chris McQuarrie when they were nobody. They had done their first little $250,000 film, Public Access. They were about to go to Sundance, where they were about to win Sundance, and their careers were about to take off. But I could tell that these guys were brilliant, and like really knew their stuff. And so my advice to you is to look at all the people you go to school with, and all of these people that want to be in film, and identify the ones that you're just like, that person's on fire, and be friends with them, and make movies with them, and bond with them, because it's the group that you come up with that some people will move ahead of you faster than you, which can be frustrating, but at the same time that can then bring up the whole group. And so that would be my advice. Just, anybody you see that just really has something special going on, they will probably go somewhere. So stick with them. And maybe it's you. I don't know. Don't sell yourself short. But that's my advice for film students.
That's great advice. Thank you so much. You also write for TV, and we have a lot of students that are very interested in episodic writing. I'm curious, given your background in features, what was that transition to TV like? How do you like one versus the other? Has there been a big learning curve or difference? What's what's something that you can share with us about the difference between feature and TV writing?
Yeah, well, so I did features for like 20 years, and it was just me in my office, and then I wanted TV experience, so I went to Netflix. I had a general meeting there with this executive, and I said, "Look, I just want," because I was a well-known screenwriter, I'd get offers for TV jobs to create shows, but then I'd never produced TV before, so it was a bit of a barrier to entry. So I said, I just want to work in a writer's room. I want to get that experience. You don't have to make some crazy deal with me. I mean, it's kind of crazy, but you know, that's what I want. And then he, to his credit, he passed my name on to this showrunner Simon Barry, who was putting together Warrior Nun. And he was like, "Hell yeah, I'll hire David Hayter." And so they did. And so I went in, and I was like, after 20 years of being in my office by myself, I might be too crazy for this. Like, can I even communicate with people? Can I can I work with people? Right? Yeah. I'm like, "Hello, I'm David Hayter. Is that sunlight?" Um, and uh, and it was great. And it was like a really, really good group of people, smart, funny. I didn't have to do everything,
Mhm.
which was nice. Normally it was just all on my shoulders. I learned about TV, which is, uh, there are differences between what the executives in a feature want and what they want on a TV show. And what they want on a feature is there, a feature should be, it's important that we're telling this story. We have to tell this story. And it's important that only the beats that tell the story are in there. There's just this huge amount of work to just refine and refine and refine and make it a story worth telling. In TV, it's more, it's character. It's the evolution of the character. And it's also, in bad TV, it's a lot more, and also in my TV sometimes, it's also people, like, they'd say, "Oh, well, we need to have a scene where they're talking about their feelings and how they feel." And I was like, "Why would you do that?" Like, you don't do that in a feature, really. I mean, it's, if the line doesn't propel the story, you get rid of it. And so I had to really learn that a big part of TV is people coming to realizations and
Mm.
talking about their feelings and stuff like that, which was, took a little while to get used to. My outlines, I would outline, beat, 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 action beats,
Yeah.
and they're like, "No, you need to say she's feeling this way, and then she feels this way, and then things change, and she feels a whole different way."
Interesting.
I was like, "That sounds awful," but I got the hang of it, and it's pretty cool.
Do you have any ambition of running your own show someday and continuing on the TV train?
Yeah, well, the nice thing about TV now is you can do anything. And when I was coming up, TV was kind of crappy, and now you can do anything. And it's kind of cool to be able to build a character over, 10 episodes or whatever. I mean, it's like a big feature now. And I would like to, but I just had, so I was in Spain last year for 6 months. I was living in Madrid. Yeah, it's pretty good. Producing Warrior Nun, and I was second in command, and so I got to see how a show gets run. And I figured it was like being a director,
Yeah.
but it's not. I mean, it's like managing. You have to manage directors. You have to manage the whole shebang. It's a different thing than being a film director, and I would like to run my own show, but I want to do it in a very specific way. I only don't want to do creative. I don't
Mhm.
want to organize the show. I don't want to make the trains run on time. I don't want to be responsible for any of that. You need somebody who is very good at that to
Yeah.
do it with you, or at least I do. Yeah, so I learned a lot about show running.
Awesome. So my last question before we start to turn it over to your all questions is you continue to voice act, even though you're, this big successful screenwriter. And I'm curious, why? What is it about it that you love doing? And uh, is there a reason that you've continued to do that despite not really needing to do that anymore?
Sure. Yeah, the reason is voiceover is the best job in the world. I don't know that it's the greatest career in the world. It's very difficult to make your living as an actor. Some people do it, but I was never able to make a full living at it. Not like I do as a screenwriter, but it's so much fun, and the people are so nice. Like, if you're on a movie, being in a movie is really fun too, but it's super boring, and you're in your trailer for 12 hours, and you're covered in toxic goo, and it's too hot, or you're covered in ants. I once played a space marine, and we were in the desert, and these fire ants were crawling into my armor and biting me, and I was like, this sucks. Thought being a space marine would be cooler than this. But voiceover, just the people, the actors are so nice, and there's no ego, and everybody just goes in and they play, and it's like doing a radio play. It's super fun. Yeah, so I was saying, for Star Wars: The Old Republic, they had hired another guy to play the lead Jedi voice, and they had to let him go for some reason. And so my friend Jennifer Hale, who's a legendary voice actress, one of the best in the world, she said, well, what about David Hayter to play it? And the producers were like, do you think he'd do it? And I was like, be a Jedi? Yeah, I'll do that. And they think, oh, he's writing big movies, or he's making money, or whatever. He's never going to do that. And it's like, yeah. And so I've been doing that job for 12 years and made a ton of money, and get to threaten people with my lightsaber. And, it's pretty fun. I killed the Emperor. That's probably a spoiler, but, but he had it coming. So, yeah, so it's just awesome. If you can get voice work, do it, because it's really, really fun, and you'll have a blast.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Okay. We've got some mic runners. Is that right? Oh, we've got some house lights. Wonderful. Okay, great. So who has a question? Right back there. Yeah.
We've got a question right back here.
Wonderful.
Right here.
Yes.
Hello, I'm Akira Maynard. I'm an animation major, and you mentioned that you've done like a career in almost like everything in the entertainment industry.
Yeah.
But I was wondering, is there like a career that you've always admired from a distance that you haven't tried out yet that you're possibly curious about trying?
No, I don't think so. Why would you do anything other than this? No, I at one point I went to high school in Japan, and I learned to speak Japanese and French, and so for a while I worked as a concierge in a hotel, and that was pretty fun. I was like 19, and they, you just get invited to all the big restaurants, and you eat for free, and everybody wants to, and so I thought about working in hotels if the entertainment industry was not kind to me, which it's not, but it pays the bills, which is nice. So I sort of, yeah, I kind of liked hospitality and travel, anything that involved traveling. But no, I never really considered another job or career. I just am not qualified for anything else, And yeah, I mean, it's funny, but it's true. I don't. Well, I don't like what do you call it? Physical labor, or lifting things, or people telling me what to do. So so this seemed like a pretty good
Rules a
career
lot of
choice.
things out, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Hey, I'm Emil. I'm a fourth-year animation major. I've just recently started like doing voiceover work and something like, because I studied under Mela Lee in like her AVR class, and something I was wondering is like, when we do like raspy your voices like that, what are some ways you like protect your voice to make sure you don't hurt your throat?
Yeah, it's a good question. And that's important. So the real key when you are putting together a voice for an audition, you have to make sure it can't just be, oh, I can do this voice. It's, I can do this voice for 4 hours in a row for months, and maybe for years. So so for Snake, it's sort of I did a lot of theater training, and I trained my voice so that I really don't need the microphone. Speak to the back of the room, and have a lot of power, and I did accents and all these things, and so it sort of lent itself to voiceover. And it's so like the Snake voice is almost like a singing technique. It's like I just drop my voice back into my throat until it starts to rattle, And I can do that all day. In fact, the older I get, the more I just sound like Snake anyway. Now, when we did Metal Gear 4, he had accelerated aging. And so what I wanted to do was the same voice, but it's coming through a larynx that's falling apart and deteriorating. And I wanted it to get worse as the game went on. We recorded it out of order. So I had to, every scene we did, I'd say, well, what percentage of the game are we into at this point? And then I would sound that level of desiccated. And and that was a little rough on the voice, but again, it was okay. But I play King Shark on the show The Flash, and that voice I did not think through. Because he's 9 feet tall and the voice is like, "Where's the Flash? Zoom wants you dead." And that, if I do that, if I have a 20-minute session, my voice will be shot for 3 days, and it's brutal. So fortunately, he doesn't talk very much. It's mostly just what I said. He's always trying to kill the Flash, but then the Flash just outruns him, or somehow he always ends up in water. I'm like, why are you going in the water? That's where the King Shark is. But I don't write that show, so it's not my business. So basically, you have to, first of all, learn how to warm up your voice, so I do a lot of humming, I do a lot of singing in the car on my way to a job or whatever. And it loosens up your vocal cords and allows you to, to speak powerfully and without too much difficulty. And just be aware of the voices of the auditions you do, and what voices you're doing. Can you do, like, you might be able to do Michael Caine, but can you do Michael Caine for 4 hours? It's like, so don't do it unless you can do that. And protect your voice, protect, your instrument.
We have a great question right now from the virtual chat.
Oh.
ITGM grad student Patrick Johnson wants to know, how do you juggle working across different disciplines as well as different types of projects? Can you elaborate on what it takes to be successful as a multi-hyphenate?
I'm sorry, I missed the wording of the first part of the question.
Grad student Patrick Johnson wants to know, how do you juggle working across different disciplines as well as different types of projects?
It's a little bit of a different headspace. I mean, it's very, very different being a screenwriter and being an actor and being a director and being a producer. All of them have different demands and needs that need to be met to be successful as a part of the team. And you just need to know what's expected of you. You need to know if you're acting, you need to know what your character is. You need to know your lines. You need to know how to pull it off, how to keep your energy up, how to bring the fire throughout the whole thing. If you're a screenwriter, you need to be able to identify the problems in a script and fix them and know how to make them better. And that's crucially important. If you're a director, you need to know everything. Mm-hmm. You need to know about color and music and camera movements and actors and management, and like that's the craziest of the jobs, I think. But it's a pretty cool job. And if you're a producer, you need to make sure that you're making the production happen. And if you're raising the money, that's a totally different headspace. You have to be a businessman. You have to go into meetings and convince people to give you millions of dollars, which is not easy. And so it's just a matter of knowing what you're being hired to do. And like particularly, like I'd make a joke about the Flash, or writing on the Flash. When you hire me as an actor, I'm not coming in as a screenwriter, because that's not what you brought me in to do. I mean, if the director says, what do you think of the script, and wants some advice or whatever, then I'll say, oh, well, I think this and this and this. But really, I'm there to do the acting job, and I don't ever want to a director to feel like, oh, we hired this guy and now he's second guessing the script and blah blah blah. It's like, no, you give me the script. If you're happy with it, I'm happy with it, and off we go. But the same, like Metal Gear. People are like, how much impact did you have on the writing of Metal Gear? And I'm like, none. They didn't. I get the scripts and I'd say, well, this makes no sense. I don't know what I'm saying here. And they're like, just say it. And I'm like, okay, so I would, and that's the job.
And we
sorry.
have a question right here in the center, in the back.
Hello, my name is Brady. I'm a senior film and television here.
Hello,
and
Brady.
I was wondering, throughout your career, or through the Metal Gear series, you had the chance to work with Hideo Kojima, and you've also worked with directors in film and television as well. I was really curious as to what the difference is between the way he approaches storytelling versus other directors.
Well, a lot of people ask me, they say, what's it like to work with Hideo Kojima? And I'm like, I have no idea. I never worked with Hideo Kojima. He would come and visit sometimes, but for Kojima-san, the Japanese game is his game. Like, that's where he does his work. And when the English dub is being made, it's not, he didn't have anything to do with it, really. I think, he approves the translation and so on and so forth, but it was, all of the games were directed, the English language versions were directed, voice directed by Chris Zimmerman, who's a brilliant voiceover director. And he'd come visit sometimes while we were recording, and he'd show us little things. He's a weird dude with these little shoes and whatnot. And he'd bring a computer and he'd show us some cutscenes, and it was very quiet, and then he'd be gone. So, so I've only met him like 3 times in my life. I don't know him at all, really, which is kind of weird. But since we're so inextricably intertwined in our lives, what was the question? Oh, what was it like? Yeah, I did get to work with. I worked with Ang Lee on the Hulk. I worked with Paul Greengrass, who was going to direct Watchmen at one point. We did 6 months together. Bryan Singer. I worked with a lot of amazing directors, and they are all different. I watched Guillermo del Toro working on Hellboy, and we got to be friends. And they're all brilliant. They're all fiercely brilliant, and intimidatingly so. But their attitudes, the way they work, are very different things. So, for example, when I walked onto the set of Hellboy, I heard, there were between takes, and I heard this singing, and it was opera, and it was "La Donne Mobile," and this blasting out voice, and it was Guillermo del Toro, and he's just singing to the crew and so on and so forth. Whereas, Brian, for example, threatened to hire an assassin to come and kill me once over a rewrite. So there's different, styles. Can I say? That's true, by the way. Yes.
Hello, my name is Indy.
Indy.
I am an animation major, and I have 2 questions actually. I don't know if I'm cheating or something, but okay, so here it goes. Snake, do you think that trans rights can bloom even in the battlefield?
Well, first of all, I feel that trans rights are human rights. And indeed. And but on a battlefield, I feel like you might be too busy.
And what's your favorite Metal Gear that you've ever worked on?
People ask me that all the time, and I'm like, there's no bad day working at voiceover. The worst day working on as a voice actor is better than your best day doing almost anything else. So it wasn't like I had more fun on one than the other. It was just, it's like to be able to come back as Snake again and again and really live that character in so many different iterations was pretty amazing. I think my favorite game was probably Snake Eater, Metal Gear 3, which is just an astounding game. And but I love them all, and there really is no difference for me in terms of the fun of it.
Mm.
So, yes, you've been waiting. Yes.
So you have mentioned some of the big directors you've worked with, like Bryan Singer and Ang Lee, for example. But like as a voice actor, are there any of like the big names in the voice acting industry that you personally know or have met before?
Yeah. Well, I get to go to a lot of Comic-Cons, and I do appearances, and I get to meet like the best. I get to meet, I met Mark Hamill and Kevin Conroy, and I've gotten to be friends with Maurice LaMarche, and hung out with Billy West, and like the whole Futurama crew, and I'm good friends with Phil Lamar, and yeah, these legendary guys. And sometimes we do this thing called Twisted Tunes at the Comic-Cons, where we take a script like Back to the Future or something, and what they'll do is they'll say they'll have 4 or 5 top voice actors, or 4 top voice actors and me, and they'll say okay, so Maurice, you're going to be playing Doc Brown as Orson Welles, and Phil, you'll be Marty McFly as Michael Caine, or Morgan Freeman, something like that. And so we do that, and and there's a few impressions that I do, and so I do it, and I'm competent at it. But some of these people are astounding. I just did one with do you know who Russ Marquand is? He's on Walking Dead. He's Googled this. There's a YouTube video called Nano Impressions with Russ Marquand, and it's just him doing like a 2-second impression of these people, and it's amazing. It's Michael Caine. It's like Michael Caine opening a jar, and he's like, I can't. I'm trying. And that's it, and it's so good.
We have another question from the virtual chat.
Oh, great.
Nova Woodruff would like to know, what is your favorite codec conversation in Super Smash Brothers when you recorded those voice lines?
My favorite codec conversation in Smash Brothers is probably, and you're going to kill me, I can't remember the character, but one of them gets around by farting. And who?
Wario.
Oh, Wario. Oh, okay. Well, that's weird. So I got to say by farting, and stuff like that. The codec things, especially for Smash Brothers, were so fun because Snake is so serious, and he just takes everything so seriously. So when he gets to be funny, it's hilarious. And so yeah, so we had a great time. And like Mario, that's Mario, Snake, and I'm like, I know who Mario is. So yeah, that was just a really fun job. We Nintendo asked if they could use Snake, and so that was Konami said okay, and they so we were recording Metal Gear 4, and then they came into the booth, and we just took 45 minutes with Colonel Campbell and Otacon, and just recorded those codec calls, and it was pretty cool.
Awesome. Cool. Very cool.
Hello there. Hi, my name is Kiba Etzioni. I'm a senior ITGM major, or game design major.
Nice.
Thank you. Stop.
Oh, no.
But I do have a question. I just finished my senior studio class where I was like basically project lead, and I was kind of leading the charge on that. And in our game, we didn't really have any voice acting, little bits, but not an actual voice actor.
Yeah.
But question in terms of voice acting, for designers and for people who are designing, say, characters and they want voice actors, what's some do's and don'ts when collaborating with voice actors to get the best performance and to get in the right like headspace of what voice actors are thinking?
It's a great question.
It is a great question, but I don't know. Sometimes it's hard, especially game designers are different from film directors, are different from and a lot of times they're really into the technical side of things. Typically, my experience with game designers is, they have an idea how they want it to go, and then you come in and you do what you do, and normally they're like, oh crap, I didn't know you could do that. I didn't know it would sound like that. And also I would also say there's a lot of bad writing in games. So getting a good writer is really, if you get a great writer to do your dialogue and you get a competent voice actor, you'll get something amazing, right? So so really, for the most part, it's just allowing the actor to feel out what they need to express and how they're going to do it. And if it's not quite what you're looking for, you just explain that and say, well, I was thinking he'd be quieter, or I was thinking he'd be more excitable, or whatever, more, whatever it is. If you're not having that experience, if the actor comes in and they're doing it and you're not like blown away, you have to figure out why that is and what you need them to do to get them there. Also, you have to be very careful not to crush their confidence, because actors are a bunch of delicate people, and so it's just like directing. You have to imagine what you think it's going to be in your head. Sometimes you'll get more than you expected. Sometimes you get less than you expected, and you have to figure out how to tweak it in a way that's positive and keeps the creativity flowing, and you'll get there, I think.
I have a quick follow-up. Do you think that it would be helpful for game design students to take directing actor classes or acting classes, or kind of crossing disciplines that way?
I think it's really good for film directors to take acting classes, screenwriters. Somebody asked me this morning about writing dialogue and how you write believable dialogue or interesting dialogue or whatever. And I was like, part of how I do it is I'm the voice actor, so I read out the line, I read everything out loud, and I can feel the cadence of the thing and whether it's working or not. And then then you get amazing actors that come in and they do different things with it, but that basically the lines are deliverable and interesting. So yeah, I think it's really good for if you're a director and you never intend to act, it's still good to get some of that experience and just do some scenes. Be terrible, but be aware of what actors go through and what actors need, because it's a weird, delicate alchemy that goes on, and if you crush their confidence, it's bad for your film. So
We have one last question. This will be our last question, unfortunately, and it's from the virtual chat. Layla Williams, who is a junior in high school, wants to know, she's interested in screenwriting and motion media, by the way. Can you provide some insight on how you make your industry connections? We all know how important that is.
yeah. Well, like I say, these are your industry connections. Right now, if you go to a school to study the arts, film, you will meet people and not everybody will become the things that they want to become, but many people will become other things that are also amazing. There's so many great opportunities and careers in entertainment. So the people that you meet will be a huge group of people that you'll bond with and will hopefully come up with and make films with. Beyond that, I don't know. You should probably be in LA, and you should probably go to a lot of parties, industry parties. Like if you're in the Writers Guild, even if you're not in the Writers Guild, I think you can go to like Writers Guild get-togethers, and they have these industry things where, and I never wanted to do them, and I sort of was lucky and succeeded anyway. But my wife feels like if I'd gone to more parties, I would probably have a bigger career. Like, what business is it of yours? No, that's not true. It is her business. So those are the only ways I know. And then finally you start to work and you build up a crew of people that you work with over time. And, you talk to like two background actors are talking on set, and then they come up with an idea for a movie, and then they write that movie, and then they sell that movie, and then suddenly they're screenwriters or whatever. I mean, it's not that easy, but sometimes that's how it goes. And so yeah, just be in the community, just work and try to make things. And nice thing about a film is you can't do it alone. You have to have many collaborators, and those people will go on to do other things and hopefully take you with them. So I also want to say, for anybody who didn't get to ask a question, first of all, I'll probably be standing here shortly, so you can ask me things. Or if you go on Twitter, follow me on Twitter and ask me a question, I will, usually if I see it, I will send you a DM and just say, here's what I would do. And I advise a lot of people that way. So, yeah.
Wonderful. Well, everybody, that is a wrap on SCAD Gaming Fest Day 1. So, thank you, David, for sharing your story with us. It was truly a pleasure. Everyone, to our incredible audience, SCAD Gaming Fest continues with more great programming tomorrow. Especially my students here. We're kicking the day off with a coffee networking session at 9:30 a.m. at Honey in the Hub. A lot of our amazing guests here for SCAD Gaming Fest are going to be there. And our first session is with Luis Cataldi, lead evangelist for Quixel at Epic Games. That's at 11 a.m. You definitely don't want to miss it. Thank you. Have a great night, everyone. Thanks, guys.